Happy to have you here. You've joined us for the best place to be on a Wednesday as Paul from Definity joins us to take a look at the macro picture for the markets. And then we dive into crypto and some nice altcoins to take a look and see what the price action is showing us. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. If you like money and crypto and you're looking for a seasoned investor's take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. Paula is not either. We do want to thank our Patreon members. We have a private Discord that our Patreon members get access to. There is also a free Telegram group you can join below with a fantastic community because our admins frequently purge bots and kick people that are toxic. So it makes it for a first-rate community of intelligent people to join, get ideas from, or bounce your ideas off of. Now, if you haven't already, make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show. Let's welcome Paul from Definity.
Great to be here. It's a short week in America this week, isn't it? You've got, you had Monday off, was it? A holiday?
I don't know what the holidays are anymore.
Oh, okay, yeah.
My life doesn't correspond with them at all anymore.
Yeah,
So,
that's what happens to me, really. Everything seems to be 7 days a week work. But yeah, so it's been a slightly quieter market from the broader market perspective, but there is some fantastic moves that have been developing, and the markets, as always, are looking really interesting. So, as we keep saying on the show, you've got to be here every week in order to spot these opportunities. And
yeah, and
volatility is coming.
Ones, yes, different ones pop off. It's kind of like some popcorn popping, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It goes in waves.
AI coins and then some China related coins and what is going to pop off next.
Exactly. And I think we're close to that retracement that I've been talking about. The dollar's starting to bite a little bit and rates are pushing up. And we've also, with the sort of geopolitical situation, there's a little bit of nervousness in the market as well. And that's pushing equities down. So these are all things that you can kind of pin the tail on the donkey as far as the market's concerned. You know, these are things we were talking about before, and it's interesting how world events kind of slot into place to make the markets move in the way that you'd expect. But the good news is, after this correction, which I think is coming, we should be gearing up for potentially quite a big move. And this is the big move that was developing from last year that we kept our bullish long-term view for, and you have as well, looking at your cycles. And I still think it's mainly in play, will be in play for the rest of the year once we get the short-term phase out of the way.
I get really excited at this point in the markets. I hope this big move comes down to give us another chance at the really, really cheap prices. Sometimes when you're in the middle of it and there's all this FUD like happened in December, people get depressed and they don't realize how great those prices are. And since some of those prices have moved on from December, that like they feel like they totally missed out. Like sharing my screen, like one of my Patreon members that I was talking to at the gold level, I interact more frequently with them, and he asked me what my thoughts were in December, and one of the ones I talked to him about was Animal Concerts was something that I was picking up. And so this is December, right? So actually it was right at the lows when we were chatting, right? And so he's like, what do you like about it? So I told him what I liked about it. He did some research and decided to pick some up. In December, those prices were just so abysmally cheap. Like, it doesn't even show on this what the market cap is anyway, but the fully diluted market cap is now 9 million, which is still really low, but prices were like 1/5 of that. So the fully diluted market cap back then was like 1.7 million, and those prices were amazing. Now I would love it if they came back anywhere near these prices, because I didn't even get a pickup as much as I wanted. And you can see that happening in some things. Like one that took off that I was really disappointed, absolutely took off and went racing up, was Illuvium, racing all the way up to almost $110. And now it's all the way down to 74. So it's going to give us probably some more bites at the apple. And if this bigger move down comes, oh man, I would love to see it push prices back down. Even though I went ahead and picked some up, I would love to see it push prices back down to this level. Well, let's jump back to what you're seeing in the bigger markets, and then we'll jump into crypto. I just want to bring some of these up.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's been some really interesting moves, and it started off with a bit of a broad market moving higher, the majors moving up, and then the altcoins followed, and then it was AI. But it's not just AI. I mean, people are talking about AI, but it's really everything's been moving pretty much. So yeah, really interesting market. We're going to talk about OMI as well. So I'm going to go through some of the markets and then go into OMI because that was a request. So in the broad, bigger picture, so what we've got here, starting off with the US dollar. So as regular viewers will know, I've been talking about a rebound in the US dollar around this 101 area, which is starting to develop. And I think it will get to around 106. I mean, it's difficult to predict the exact level. It may go further. It may stop before. It may just hit this 200-day moving average and come back again. But this is a rebound, retracement in what is now a downward trend. And so as interest rates are expected to go up one more time, actually, I think in the US, and once that's done, then the market will like relax and breathe a sigh of relief and say, okay, that's it now. We've got stability. We can plan. We can deal with what this interest rate levels is at. And they'll start looking at inflation and putting money into the stock market, into cryptocurrencies, and into risk on, what we call risk on. But at the moment, we're still in this slightly gray area about what the Fed might do next. And this is why the dollar's rallying a little bit. There's also geopolitical risk that people have been looking at. And again, that's pushing money back into the dollar. Some people just got really bearish on the dollar at the wrong time. And, you know, that's part and parcel of it. So there are some positions that need to be squeezed. So for the moment, I think the market will go higher. We'll see this rally. And then eventually we'll see that start to come down, and we should have a very interesting longer term trend. So if we look at quick look at what's going on in the bigger picture with equities, see the Dow's just going sideways, nothing really to see there for the moment. It's not a big bearish picture that some people are talking about, you know, that say crash or it's really awful. It's not. It's just markets going sideways. The tech stocks aren't doing particularly well. They're struggling in comparison, but they were probably slightly overvalued or were overvalued after the pandemic. And the market is shifting its focus a little bit. So they're being a bit picky about which tech stocks they buy. And that's not such a bad thing for the moment. But it's still, the market is up, and it hadn't crashed in September last year, which is what most people were thinking. So once the interest rate rises out the way, I think these equities will move higher as well. It just might not move as high as some of the others. So we're expecting some of the tech stocks to lag and other stocks to lead. But if we go over to what's been going on with the majors, well, actually, let's have a quick look at interest rates, because the 10-year money is always important. So you see, this was the main upward trend. This is an upward trend. We had a retracement down in yields, and that's what caused the bounce. This is the bounce that the Bitcoin and most cryptocurrencies, because of that SBF and everything that was going on last year, cryptocurrencies were really under a cloud. And until we got that news, they were being pressured lower. And it was very weird that they weren't rallying with everything else because they're a risk-on play. We got the reason for it, and then we got this big rebound, a bit like holding a balloon underwater or football or whatever you want to call it. Then once you let it go, it's just suddenly managed to rally. And so all that's happened, in my view, is cryptocurrencies have caught up to where everything else was. So if you look at the rallies in the equity markets, they were moving up, but cryptocurrencies weren't rallying, which is very unusual. So the correlations have fallen back into line, if that makes sense. So we'll get to a point where they will start to move together a little bit more in synchronicity, because this bad news is now out and the market is operating more from a normal point of view, as it were. I mean, there's no real definition of what normal is, to be honest, when it comes to the markets, but certainly having something like that in the background and you know, not out in the open is bound to cause the charts to look bad and the market to look under pressure. So now that's out. It's actually a good thing. That's why it's out, that it's good that it's out now and people can deal with it and move on from it, which is what they're doing. And also another thing, weaker projects would always fail, and it's how the system works. So during that, people make a decision about what they think is really good, what isn't, and then it's like clearing out the dead wood and moving on with the good projects. So I think there's been a good series of that happening. And if we move over to where the let's have a look, where's it gone? Up here. So if we look at what's been going on in the majors, so starting off obviously with Bitcoin, the big level that we were discussing was this 25,212. So it's hit that level, and I thought it might come up there and retrace, only because of the resistance that was there before, and the fact that if you look at where the dollar is and everything else, they've all been coming off, and it feels like this rally has run its first phase, its first leg. Now, I'll be more than happy to be wrong, and if this keeps going up, fantastic. I'm not going to be 100% right on everything. Nobody can be, but it seems like this is a very good stopping point. Sometimes the market can be a bit crafty and break through, go for some stops, and then come back down again. But I'm not expecting that to happen. I think this is it for now. So corrective phase. How far could it go? Possibly back to 21, maybe even further, but 21 is a very good support area. So I wouldn't mind seeing it back there. If it goes a bit further, but all the way back to 19,666, so be it. But I still think we're operating now from a new phase, a new trend that started down here in November and has been developing. So a pullback would not be the end of the world. It would just be a big correction. And then we can start talking about breaking this level and forming what could be potentially a big inverse head and shoulders pattern, which for those of you who aren't familiar with the technicals, that all that's saying is that this could be a really big basing pattern that would set us up for a very long-term rally. The bigger the pattern, the bigger the rally. And this is going to be a massive reversal pattern if it does complete. And that is an if. Doesn't guarantee it's going to complete. It's only if it does complete. But at the moment, it seems to be by the book. It seems to be working by the textbook of what a head and shoulders reversal should be. So it's made the left shoulder, which is here. It's made the head, which is here. The right shoulder, which will be here. And it doesn't have to mirror exactly what's happened on the left, but usually that's what it does. So that means that we could be braced for a move back down to 19,666 or maybe even lower, but that could be a good buying opportunity for it then to move higher and break this big resistance point, and off we go. So we'll see. We'll let the market tell us how it wants to trade, and we'll react to it. But in taking it one step at a time, I think we're ready for a bit more of a correction here.
Yeah, especially because so many people are turning bullish, right? So the market tends to then flip around. Surprise people.
When I used to work in a dealing room and we used to speak to our clients who used to come from all over the UK, they used to say, you city boys are pushing the market around and making it so, we can't call it right. And that was absolutely not true at all. It's just that's what the market tends to do. And I can understand why they might think that, but it really isn't. It's just how the markets are. They tend to reverse just when it looks the best and vice versa. And I think they tend to do what catches out most people. And so yeah, it's people are definitely suddenly waking up to the fact that actually, it's still a very exciting place and space.
Yeah, I hope it gets a little bit more boring so I can get some more bites at the apple at those super cheap prices, but we'll see how it does play out.
Are you going to get the t-shirts made? When are you going to get those done? We need buy when it's boring.
If somebody wants to do those for us, I hate taking care of logistics that way.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Like everyone has what they're good at. My mind thinks economics all the time, but as far as making that stuff and shipping it and taking orders and processing any of it, just not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Although, like, yeah, if somebody in the family wants to make those, like, I'll support it, even if they're making a profit, as long as it's a great T-shirt that like people love, and I feel like there's value there. Heck yes.
But all the best merch places are in America, because I've tried to find a few
Interesting.
in the UK, and they're much better over there.
Huh.
So, I think you can get the print to order, but that's for another day, I suppose, to talk about. But anyway,
Yeah, that would be fun. Probably when the bull market comes back in and everyone realizes how well they did because they bought so cheap and how all this patience paid off.
yeah,
I think we're going to see a lot of millionaires in the community, and
yeah,
that will be really exciting times. And then maybe somebody will want to take that up and run with it.
yeah.
That'd be a lot of fun.
That'd be great. It'd be good to see. Yeah,
Yeah, and maybe we can do like, I do have some connections, do some good artwork, and do some NFTs with those or something. That would be fun.
yeah. You can do it with AI these days, can't you?
Right. The AI can do some crazy stuff. Going through the comments, just wanted to give a shout out to everyone who's chiming in here. Thank you. Troy says, "What's up, Rainmakers? What's
Hey,
up,
Troy.
guys? Love these videos." Says Ryan S. Love these videos with Paul.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that.
Ryan S. Smash the like. We'll get to it. There's been a few things coming in, which we only have a few that are on the plan, so we should get to some of your picks. So Drawer asked us to take a look at Freeway Token and Cetus. Love to.
Sure.
And Ryan S wants us to look at Centaurify. Perfect.
Right. It's some
Yeah.
okay.
We should have time to hit those.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So, should we continue with the other markets, because we've got Ethereum to look at, which so Ethereum again, the big level is 1720, which you may remember from a few weeks back that we were saying this is the breakout point, and it seems to be stopping there. The reason why, if you're wondering why I picked that level, it was just because it was massive support on the way down. You see how it bounced there a few times and then it broke through. So when a market comes back to a level like that, even though it broke through here, it wasn't ready for the rally yet, as we know. It wasn't ready for a big rally. So it's come back there again. And from that point, it's finding resistance. So support and resistance is what's called reverses its roles. So it's reversed its roles there. And we were getting towards the end of what I thought was the first phase of this rally. So the fact that it's coming off seems to be on cue. Now, I don't know how far it's going to come down, and it just seems to be respecting that resistance point, which for me makes it even more interesting, because if it does come off a lot, it comes down a lot and then takes another run at it, it makes that 1720 such an important breakout for me buy zone. Once it crosses through it, it should get to this 2031, and then it's created a massive double bottom. As we know, Ethereum has outperformed Bitcoin, and it should, I think, lead the way. So it's quite an important one to be strong. But those are the big levels. We can also see a crossover. So the moving averages have crossed over. Now, I like moving averages, but I don't get too hung up on what the moving average say, because it's really the market that makes the moving average and not the moving average making the market. So for me, it's secondary importance to what the chart is doing, because even though they've crossed over, I'm thinking we're going to see a correction. So although this could be a long-term buy signal, short-term, the market might come back to this 1365 area before it goes back up again. It may even test this developing upward trend line. So we'll have to see how big the correction is. If it's small, fantastic. I'm not worried about it, being stronger, because we've sat through a crypto ice age, let alone a winter. But if it is a bigger correction, that wouldn't bother me too much in terms of the big picture. But I still think Ethereum will lead the way. So just to throw this in, I know that the picks that other people want.
Let's take a look at Solana.
Yeah, well, Solana, again, it's come back to its 200-day moving average. So that's why I think there's so much resistance up here, so much at this 26, 27 area. Now, I'm hoping that I said that like a few weeks ago. I've said it every time we talked about it, but that really is It's such a strong area that it's not surprising it's struggling to get through. So I think it will come back possibly to around 19.5, maybe a bit lower, before it then has another run up. And if we look at it's Ecomi. So Ecomi, we identified as the resistance at 0.010,503, which has been on here for ages, to be fair. Now, that was the resistance that came from support, and it's been bashing itself against that. And it even had a little spike through it, but it didn't manage to hold it back here in February the 4th. But I think we did say last week that there was good potential for this to break through, because the market starts to scout about for catch-up plays. It's seen things have gone, and it's gone, right, what hasn't moved yet? What could be a good project? What's not going down? And this wasn't going down, it was consolidating, and then they start buying it. So this is moving up. So this should really have a bit more to go, because it's underperformed. So it's a tricky one, really, because when something's underperformed, if everything else starts turning down, it can actually just turn down with it because it's been a bit weaker. But I get the impression that because this has broken such a good resistance point, it should have a bit more to run on the upside. So this could detach itself from the broader picture and maybe rally a bit further. But it's great that it's finally got through that resistance. I think that's really good for the long-term picture. And yeah, as I say, it's trying to break free of this resistance and should have further to go.
Yeah, it was good to see it break that level, and so maybe it will treat that now as support.
Yes, absolutely.
If the greater market does come down, my thoughts are this one might come back down under 0.1 cents, which has been a fantastic price for pickups for the long term. I wanted to go back. Can you go back to that Solana chart?
Yeah, absolutely.
So remember, like, just the psychology of like contrarian investing, right? Buying when everything is doing the opposite. Now, I didn't pick up Solana because I didn't have enough knowledge as to what the developers were doing in this December wick down. But if you remember, kind of what happened is people fled Solana and dumped it. It went all the way to below $8, which is like it almost 4x'd from what that low was. And so you see how things can turn around. And so a lot of what I like to do when the market is generally down, and it's generally down, even the stuff that we see is pumped, like now OMI, if we go back to OMI, it's at 0.0012 cents, right? Which,
Yeah.
or 11 cents, is an extremely cheap price.
Yeah.
And but it's not as cheap as it was. Will it come back down there? Yes. And so a lot of this stuff is just picking up things when it's really hard to time the exact bottom, because it's there so briefly and you don't know if it's going to keep going down or what. But generally buying at these lows makes a big difference. Like, let me share. I'm going to share my screen and share like Sandbox.
Yeah.
Let me pick up one that.
I think just while you're doing that, if I could just say that it's it really does help if you believe in the project whilst it's going down and you've done a bit of research in that regard. And that's obviously not what I do. I don't do any of that research. I just look at the technicals, and that's why I would never personally, when the way I look at it, want to buy into a market that's falling. It's always got to consolidate and then start to move higher. Because of that, I'll always miss the low, invert commas, miss the low, because the low has to be formed before I will look for a change in trend. But that's why I find it really fascinating, this whole area, because it's a bit like the broader market where lots of people look at fundamentals and some people look at technicals and some people combine the two. So it's really down to what makes sense to you and how you put those things together.
Well, I think part of what you do is so sophisticated, Paul, and it really does take a lot of knowledge and understanding and expertise. And I hope that's where a lot of our viewers get to in the coming 5 or 6 years. And in the meantime, what I try to share with them is what's worked for me specifically in crypto, right? But Is crypto going to be the markets to be trading 10 years from now? It's probably not going to have this volatility that we're enjoying now. So it's like if the audience members do really well in the coming 5 to 10 years, they're going to have all these assets and they're going to have a lot of sophistication that they can trade broader markets. So all this stuff Paul is sharing with you, like this teaches you how to recognize breakouts, when to move in any of the markets out there, whether it's oil, whether it's the dollar index, whether, it's just whatever. And that does take a level of sophistication and developing some rules and then sticking to them. I find that stuff hard to do. So I focus on what my background is just business consulting, right? So and just then looking at what projects are doing and who I think is going to be successful, buying and then holding for a period of time. To me, that's so much easier while I'm learning how to really take like strategic buys for a short period. Like I feel like crypto has so much attraction to me for the next maybe 5 to 10 years, as it has these huge volatility swings. Is like everybody thinks Bitcoin's going to die and it goes way, way down. And then they're like, oh, cryptocurrency is the best thing ever. NFTs, like, and then it swings way, way up. And I love taking those swings, but it's not always going to be available. And at that point, I might have to play all kinds of different markets. And these principles that Paul shares with us not only help you do well in crypto, but can help you understand everything. So not just the crypto market, but in every market. Some of what I did was buy what we're looking at here. Let me share my screen. So way back here, right? So this is CoinMarketCap, and this is what Sandbox used to look like way back here, right? So back in here, it was just kind of boring and nothing really going on. And, but that changed, right? And then all of a sudden it swung up to 80 cents, went all the way back down to 14 cents and up. And it's like Sandbox, I did buy a bunch of their token so that I could get some land. It wasn't ever clear what their land or what their token would do, but this was the like boring period, right? So the major market swing hadn't hit, nothing really seemed to be going on. And then all of a sudden it hits in the main narrative. And look at the volatility swings. Like that's just amazing. So if you're playing around and bought some here and kind of set it to the side, you could have bought and you probably would have missed the bottom. This is what buying at that murky bottom where you can't quite tell the bottom is. So say you had picked up some at 5 cents and then you see this swing up, and then you had maybe sold some at $1 and $2 and $3 and $5 and $7. And that the reason why you take profits is because look at the reverse volatility, right? Now you're still up even at the 74 cents. You were buying at 5 cents, but if you had taken some profits out, and this is what, then you were in a really, really good place. And this is what crypto can do for you, right? And that's what I love about these swings is the volatility is just huge. So we're in another one of those boring market times. Think of like Sandbox when it was trading, somewhere between 3 to 5 cents, and it was just going up and down and up and down. Let's see so it mostly looked like this, right? And all of a sudden it hit like 11 cents and came down to 9 cents. It's like, oh man, all right, look at those gains. But that was absolutely nothing compared to what the future held for it, right? So was that callable? Was that predictable? A little bit. It wasn't fully predictable that it would go all the way to $7 because that's what happened from Facebook announcing their huge shift to the metaverse. That's when that really took off, because during the March pump when everything ran, it topped off at about 75 cents, which is still a solid 15x. Not bad, but it went so much higher in the future. So a lot of what we're looking at now, like Ecomi, the price is bouncing around down here anywhere between 0.07 cents and what would this point? Yeah, 0.11 cents. And then where can it go in the future? Well, when the narrative hits, if it hits, then you'll see the big swing like we talked about or just showed in Sandbox. And then you want to take some profits at that point and capture some of those gains. Because especially if it does swing really high, you saw what happens after it gets out of the narrative focus. Like what happened in Sandbox. It came back down, right? So narrative focus, oh my gosh, metaverse is the new thing, nothing will ever change. And then now you still ended up at a higher low than where it was before. But boy, it would have been juicy to take some profits here for you, right? All right. With that said, let's jump at some more of the ones that we have on the schedule, and then we can jump over to some viewer picks.
Sure thing. Okay. Yeah. So, right. So what's the first? Was it one chain, the first one? Yeah. It was.
Yeah.
The second one.
Me, one chain.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah. So this chart is looking good. I'm pretty sure we said a few weeks ago that this was a buy, and it's a buy with my criteria. Or was a buy, and it's broken through this resistance point. Very, very clear. So this 25 cents has been building up for a while. Around here, because we're discussing this every week or so, there was a potential reversal here. We didn't know whether the market was going to turn at this point, but it looked like it might try and get through this 25 cents. Went for another dip, rally, again, comes back to 25 cents. And all this consolidation has formed a solid foundation for the next move up. And what you want to see in the move up is a sharp move, a sharp realization that we're at the start of a trend. And that's what we got. So it's broken this 25 cents. That's why it surged so much, because there's so much resistance around there. But you can see, and this is why I love charts, you can see the pressure has been building on the upside for a while. Look at these higher lows as the market's been pushing up and pushing up. And it looks boring because there's nothing really going on. There's no trend. But then as soon as it starts to get drawn to that resistance, it pops through. And now we can try that and it fails. Nothing works 100% of the time. But on a probability basis, when it breaks, we should see an extension of the move to the upside. So given that it's underperformed, it has probably got a bit more to go. I would suggest 0.42 as a target, because that was major support which should become resistance, and that's pretty much a guess. There's nothing sort of scientific about that. I'm just saying that was where there was a lot of resistance last time, and the market's on the move. It's on the move up, so let's see how far it can go. I think the broader picture will come to bear on it though, and we will see a retracement. The question is, what is a time frame for trading? Is it short term or is it long term? It's long-term investment. It really does depend. But this should really have based from a long-term perspective. So we should be looking at a longer term move to the upside. That doesn't mean it's going to be a straight line. So there could be a retest of this trend line to the upside, or a retest of the support around 25 cents. And we know it's a really big level because it took a while to break through it in the first place. So if it does get back there or a little bit below, then we can be ready to either enter it if we haven't, or maybe buy in as an initial position. Now, if we wait for this pullback and it doesn't happen, obviously that's the risk. So either we wait for a pullback or we buy it here and risk it pulling back and then having bought at the wrong point inverted commas, because wrong is only wrong depending on your time frame. Now, where I wouldn't want to hold it is if it broke below this trend line or broke below this area here. This support, to me, this rally here, the jumping off point of all of this move was 18 cents. So below 18 cents, the warning signs start to go off, and I'd say, I'd have to rethink a bullish strategy. Would not look bullish anymore. So I'd be heading for the parachutes and getting out. But overall, this has made a base. It's done everything that it should have done in a base. It's moved up aggressively. So the trend should be up from here. So it's still a buy.
Yeah. All right. So,
and that's a long-term buy. Sorry, just to preface that with it.
Yeah, that's something that you would buy and just hold for the longer period. Now, they just made some big updates that their bridge for WAN chain, the CMO sent this over to me. They have it so the bridge is working between ETH, Arbitrum, WAN chain, Polygon, and a bunch of other chains. And what was crazy is for almost zero fees, you can send, like, say your ETH, you have it on WAN, you can bridge it over to Polygon for like next to nothing and bridge it back and forth for super, super cheap. The only fees is when you're bridging to or from ETH, because then the ETH transaction fees are high. But once you get your ETH off of WAN into one of these other chains, you can bridge it back and forth super cheap using WAN chain's bridge. And they're continuing to add more things to the bridge. Like this vision what WAN chain's been doing, I feel like when everyone's been focused on other things, they have been building. And at some point, it's going to hit public awareness and be like, oh my gosh, a little bit like we went with AI, right? Where we all just had this wake-up call on how far AI has moved forward, because it has moved forward a lot. And I didn't realize how much it had moved forward. So I think all of a sudden, WAN chain will come into the narrative at some point because of this bridging tech that they have and the simplicity and the security behind it. And we could see some really nice things with it. Also, everyone already knows this, but WAN chain is a strategic partner of the channel. So I'm a big fan. And love to work with them on this. They're one of the tokens I've been following all the way since their launch back in 2017 and 2018. All right. Let's take a look at the next ones. Let's see.
It's Bumper, I think.
Yes, let's take a look at Bumper.
Yeah. So knowing the background to what Bumper is trying to do, it would probably make... and this is just a probably, it would probably be it would work in its favor, I think, although it may be asymmetric, I'm not sure. It may be balanced between the two, but it may work better for their strategy if the market is going up. So if you're protecting positions, my guess is if the market's falling very heavily, that whilst it might encourage people to take insurance, it also might cost as well. So I have to say, I've heard you describe what they do, and my sort of initial reaction was, when the market's falling heavily, that might be that might put pressure on it. But when the market's going up, as it is now, it will probably move with it. So, but I can look more closely at it. What is clear is that you've been very bullish, and I've been very cautious, and it is starting to accelerate. So we have seen that acceleration. The price action has looked very strange, to be honest with you, the way these candles have kind of got these long wicks, which suggests either bad data or there's been some strange moves going on. But if we look at the overall pattern, you can see that this has started to move in a parabolic way, which is exactly what we'd want. And it's accelerating into this 8.5 cents resistance point, which is, I think, where I would be a bit wary about suddenly deciding it's going to go up from a short-term perspective. From a long-term perspective, this could well be making a big base, and that's what I like. So if we take this pattern from the 22nd of March, this move down 22nd of June, up, June 2022, March 22, and then this move down here in November, all the way back up. This is forming a big base of some kind. Now, whether that's going to be a double bottom or an inverse head and shoulders, I'm not sure. But I would be suggesting that there be, if it's price action, if downside price action puts a bit more pressure on this, maybe it's harder for them to make money. I don't know. If the market goes down, then that would make sense. If the market's about to correct, this would correct with it. But that could give us a buying opportunity, which could come in around 4 cents, I'd say, which is the breakout of this resistance point. So could also draw in a trend line, which encompasses this angle of trend, this this more sustainable angle of trend. There's no point drawing a trend line like this because it's a straight line up. It's going to break it. And so this move here is obviously very encouraging. When we put it in context of the bigger picture, it is very encouraging. But I do think we'll see a retracement with everything else, and that will give us a potential buying opportunity. So given that it's so close to this point, I'm going to say this is a wait, but it's looking a lot better, and well done for you calling it there.
Yeah, I would love another bite at the apple for a really cheap bumper. I did buy some more at 7 cents last night, but just a little bit more. I have a bunch of this. I would love a whole bunch more because what they're doing is hard to conceptualize, because it's like insurance, but not insurance. The way they're handling it, they don't lose money when the market goes down because of what they're able to do with the smart contract. So say somebody wants to take their ETH and they want to protect their position, and say ETH has gone up, and just for round numbers, or let's just say ETH has gone down instead of $1,000 per ETH, and some big corporation has a big position in that, $100 million, and they want to protect it. So they can protect it at the 95% level, 85% or 90 or 95% level, and they pay a premium for that, kind of like you would in insurance. But what happens if that ETH goes below 1,000 and hits $950 is it gets converted into bumpered ETH so they have a bunch of stable coins providing liquidity, and they swap it into, say, USDC. So then if it continues to ride down, really the premiums for the person that's protecting their position start increasing the further it falls below that, incentivizing them to go ahead and take their protected position. But the company itself doesn't lose money when it goes down below that because they're not insuring it. What's happened is it's actually already swapped to stablecoins. It's already protected. It's there. The money is there. And when it goes back up above it, it'll swap it back into ETH when it goes above that 95% level or the $950. And so it's a different technology than has ever existed. And so it's hard because it's kind of like a stop loss. It's kind of like insurance, but it's really never existed before. And so smart contracts is what's made this possible. So it is a different way of thinking. Now, I'll share a little bit of fundamentals that might be driving behind this. I've been reached out to Jonathan, the CEO, to see if he'll come on the channel again. And he wrote back and said, "Hey, pal, definitely up for that. We've completed our simulation, which indicates great improvements over put options. Plus, we've engaged a company, I don't know if this is public knowledge, I think this company's helping promote, and this company has helped promote a lot of big names in the crypto space. So he's going to come on the channel probably next week and share that news. So I think part of what's driving behind this is some people are finding out some information on what's happening, because the market cap, part of the reason the charts look so funky is that the market cap has been so low and the liquidity is so low. So the only place you can trade this right now is on Uniswap. And there's not a lot of depth on Uniswap. In fact, I think they switched over to Uniswap version 2. Let me check on, I want to check it on CoinGecko and see if goes to the Uniswap version 2 contract. No, that's the V3 contract too, but there's not a lot of depth. This is like the amount of liquidity there, that a swap any greater than this causes more than a 2% swing in the price. So the amount of liquidity is really low, and it's not tradable on any exchanges yet. And so it really is a relatively unknown project that hasn't done any marketing. Like, I talk about it a lot with you, but literally almost no YouTube channels are talking about it yet. And so the only reason I found out about this is I got to know them before launch because of some mutual connections, like, hey, you have to look at this, and sent me their white paper. I read the white paper sent it over to somebody else I know that was huge in the DeFi space, and he's like, this is world changing if it works. And so I followed them really close ever since then. But nobody's covering this. Nobody's talking about it. Its market cap is abysmally low right now at 3.5 million. And that's after having pumped, right? Because it was all the way down here at 1/4 of where we're at now. So the market cap back then was under 1 million. And their fully diluted market cap was like 5 million back then. And still, I think this is potentially a phenomenal price. But like you said, it's hitting this major resistance area, and chances are it'll bounce off that and come back down, but we'll see, right? If all of a sudden it goes from nobody knowing about it to a whole bunch of people knowing about it, that would continue to pump it, right? Is like, oh, what's this? Oh my gosh, what are they doing? Oh, that's crazy. Because this is one of the projects that I look at and I was like, well, if what they're doing works and hits mainstream, the market cap right now at 3.5 million, this is something that could have a market cap of like 50 billion. If what they're doing works and large investment companies start using it to protect their projects, then everybody would be talking about it and their market cap would swing wildly to the upside. And that could happen within one cycle. But there's some ifs there. This is the problem with investing. We don't know if these things will come together or not. You know, obviously, if you like this project and you bought some, you're hoping that it does, but we don't have a magic crystal ball to see how exactly it plays out. But that's why I've been loading up on this one. Cool. Let's jump over to the next one. For me, at this price, it's kind of like a wait. So I'm going to say, just like Paul, I'm going to say wait too, just because, yeah, like we're so close to this line. I did buy some more at 7, like almost 8 cents, but just a little bit more. And then we're near this point. I had the chance to buy some more at like where it's at now, and I was just like, I'm just going to wait and hope it comes back down some more so I can continue picking up some and dollar cost averaging into more of this. All right, let's jump over to Render and take a look at that.
Sure thing. So Render has been on the buy list and it was forming this base for some time. We got this run up and breakout of resistance. So I think it was around this 90 cents area that we got the green light. But I seem to remember talking about it before, just a little bit beforehand. So in any case, it has had a very nice run up, as we know, and it's hit the resistance zone, which is between this area here of $2.15, $2.61. So it's hit the bottom edge of that. Now, this is developing into something, and this is I think we have to pause here because I'm not sure what this is going to be at this stage. If it can stay within, and let me zoom in, I'll just show you what I'm looking at here. If it can stay within this area here, it will be forming a potential triangular constriction. And a triangular constriction is a great continuation pattern, and it would be very bullish. So as long as it bounces between this, goes sideways for, say, a week or so, and then starts to push up and break this $2.16, we could see another move like this following on the other side of it. What I suspect will happen, and I know it's a bit dangerous to have a view as a technician, you should just let the market tell you what it's going to do. But what I suspect it will do is, I don't like to call tops, but I think it might just come back down to $1.33, maybe break that, and then test just below $1 and shake a few people out before it goes up again. And that's really more due to the macro position. So I like this. I think it's formed a really decent base. This is a long-term base. You look how long it's taken to form that. If we change it to a weekly chart and sort of consolidate the data, you can see it's been going sideways for a long time. And now it started to move higher. So this is what we want. We want a nice upward trend, and it's doing it. So I think this is great from a longer term perspective. But short term, I'm getting a little, I'm getting sort of the inkling that we should maybe be waiting or waiting for a pullback, a test of this support area before jumping back in. So I want to see how it's going to trade in this, what sort of pattern comes out of it.
For now, it'd be a wait because the chances that it breaks back down are pretty high. The chances that it goes up, it could still do that, but just the chances are low at this point, lower, that it will do that. So for you, it's a wait, right?
Yeah.
Me too, for the same reasons. Yeah, and I like to buy when it's cheap. Obviously, if I can see that the chances are really high it's going to break up again and take another run up, then I'll throw in some swing trade money sometimes for the shorter term trade, like just short term trades. But for me, it's just a wait, looking for a bite at the apple, cheaper if it comes back down to cheaper. And I think it will, because I think there's going to be a greater market pullback. And this and just about everything will probably be affected by that. There might be a few things that aren't, that run despite that. But I wouldn't be surprised to see this do a bigger pullback, that some people are still buying in at this, hoping that it will continue higher. But I'd say the chances of that are less, that it continues to run without a bigger pullback first, just to shake some people out, like Paul said. Let's take a look over at Enjinstarter's token now. This is a Launchpad project, one of the ones that I followed, and I like the team behind it a lot.
Yeah. So again, this is one that has been in a long-term downward trend, and we haven't been able to touch it until recently, when it started to show some life, and it's had a very good acceleration through this resistance point, which is a third of a cent, and it's consolidating. Now, what do we make of this? It's got a lot of ground to recover into, and it tends to move in a way that, when certain markets have certain signatures in the way that they trade, and this seems to, when it starts trending, to keep trending. It kept trending on the way down, and the pullbacks tend to be quite small, as opposed to big volatility that we see in some of the coins. So although I think it may succumb to a broader market correction, I think that this is going to be interesting for the longer term. So it's going to be a wait in the short term, but I wouldn't mind seeing it down at this quarter of a cent down here, this level, 0.0025, as a buy zone potentially, for it to then go back up. Now, what would be kind of neat is if this is the left shoulder, this is the head, it's making the right shoulder, then we'd have a really nice inverse head and shoulders pattern. But it might not do that. I don't know. So pullback, I think, would be good, and then we can look at a longer term rally, which I think this breakout here is telling us that that's what it wants to do. The fact that it's such a sharp move, and look, we can't rule out a continuation to the upside. It's just that I think, given the broader macro position, I'm going to be a little bit cautious. But if it takes out this resistance here at 0.5 cent, it could well have a little pop. So it's worth watching. It's on the run. It's on the move. And when coins are moving like this, you have to keep your eyes on them, because this is a lot of volatility potential. So it can really move a long way in a very short space of time. So giving a long-term view on it is quite tricky, given how quickly it's moving. But I would suggest that it will come back a bit, as my central case. And hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully it just goes straight up.
Yeah. For me, it's like, I like to buy when it's cheap, and it's not clear enough to me that it's going to continue to run that I would be buying more. For me, it's just a wait. I like this one for the long term, but I like to buy at prices where I just have a little more certainty than where it's at right now. So for me, it's a wait as well. Let's jump over to some of the ones that are the audience has asked for. Let's look up. Can you pull up the chart for Freeway token?
Yeah. Just before we do that, was there just one more? Was there Anchor? Was it?
Oh
Anchor?
yeah,
Yeah.
Anchor.
Yeah.
ANKR did something really interesting the last few days.
Yeah. Absolutely. I just go through that quickly, and then we go to the other picks. So look, look at the acceleration. It's accelerated into this key resistance area, which is at basically, four and a half, well, no, 5 cents. So this is like what I call a pivotal level, because look, it acts as support, breaks it through, then comes resistance. It's come through again as resistance. So will it come back and then break through again? I'm not sure, but it's right in the middle of that. And I think bigger picture, it's looked very interesting, because if we look at the low here and this higher low, that's a major upward trend. So that's really good, and it's comparatively done very well compared to some other projects. So I think a retracement and then another go to break it would be really good. I'd actually prefer it to come back and then have another go at breaking through it. But look, if it ends up being strong and just continues on its way, then brilliant. But this for me is such an important pivotal level, and the way it's rushed into it, I couldn't rule out a break higher, but my feeling is that it needs a pullback. So I'm going to say it's a wait, but I'm pretty sure we've talked about this before, and I'm pretty sure we've been relatively bullish on it. So for the long term, I still like it. It's just for the short term, I think it's a wait.
Okay. Perfect. Let's jump over to, for me, it's a wait at this point too, because I just don't know where it's going from here. So I would have to, Paul said it's a wait. And for me, it's a wait at this price, right? So.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at, let me scroll up and see. I think Freeway Token and Cetus. Why don't we start with Freeway Token?
Right. Okay. So I could try this first one, but I've got a feeling it's not going to be updated, because it's usually. Oh no, it is. That's interesting. Usually the first one isn't from some of the other ones. Anyway, so Freeway Token. This is tricky, isn't it? So we look at the overall trend in the market, and what do we see? We see something that's been going sideways for a very long time, and it's recovered into the kind of central point of the chart, but no more. It's hit it, and it's really come off quite hard. So yeah, what would you say about that? I'd say it's definitely a wait, because I don't really know where this is going right now. I think what we could do is draw an upward trend here. It's broken that trend line. I'd have to draw it from here, which I don't want to do. So no, I'm going to take that off. I'm going to say it doesn't look like it's going to find support here. I think it's going to find support a bit lower. So I'd be waiting for this to pull back a bit more. I'm not surprised it's taken more than one go to break this resistance point, because it is massive. There is a load of resistance up here, and it's going to be hard to get through that. So the fact that it's not done it on the first go is not really a surprise. I don't mind it for the long term. It wouldn't be my first choice compared to some of the other markets. But if I'm having to call this one on its own, I would say wait for a retracement. Then I might take a nibble at it around 0.0021. Around here, I think, be fair enough place. If it's going to then start turning around and break this, then I think that's not a bad place to have tried to get in. But ultimately, I think I would feel far more comfortable waiting for it to break through this resistance before I would touch it, because then we'd have a much better confirmation of an upward trend. So for me, it's a wait, but I'm willing to, at least it's not in a very strong downward trend, which is what some of the others have been, and it's recovering. So there's some activity there, which is a very good sign.
This one is an interesting one. If you remember, this one specifically has an algorithm that they lease from a successful company, and it's not clear if this is the algorithm that's had this history of 20 years of doing like 70% average, and they can't say specifically with their lease of it. And so what they allow you to do is put money in what they call their superchargers. So a Bitcoin supercharger, ETH supercharger. And they were showing really, really nice rewards until there was a time where something funky happened with Japanese currency, when all of a sudden things switched. Right around that time, something worked disastrously wrong, or at least this is the story within their algorithm. So it's not that fall. That fall happened because somebody hacked their token.
Oh, was it that
The
one?
following one.
Right.
And so they froze all the withdrawals from their platform and everything, and it made everyone think of like Luna's crash. It made everyone think of FTX and Celsius and Voyagers, like freezing withdrawals right after all those things had happened. And so it caused a lot of panic, because it's like, wait, do they really have this algorithm? Or they were saying, oh, something broke in the algorithm and they were going to have to pause withdrawals. But if it were some kind of scam, that's the same story they would likely be saying. Now, what's cool is since then, they have some, according to what the team has said, they have some restraints on what they can say and can't say about the algorithm. But they went this different way, where they did some calls with some individuals who had over 50,000 on the platform that wanted to invest, and they allowed them to put larger amounts and to be able to take control of the platform or the algorithm. They made a way that they could run the algorithm themselves, and they could actually show their actual returns. And so I think one or two of our community members went that route with them and have been talking about their returns. In fact, a lot of people, and the returns, like, this is actual trading that they can see, the buys and the sells, and sometimes they're up in a day and sometimes they're down in a day, but their ups have been a lot better than their downs, and they're getting the kind of crazy returns that Freeway Token said that they were able to do. And it's really substantiated that this algorithm is real, that everything they've been talking about is real. But people are still scared, right? And so the token price hasn't really even recovered to that previous point, because it's mostly a fear-based thing. You can, for somebody who's interested in this one, you can jump in and start researching and see the posts from people that are using this algorithm, that have the ability to post what their gains and losses are and how things are going, and make an informed decision for yourself if you feel it's real. Because when this fall happened, I was concerned, and I had a large amount of the tokens, and I sold off 40% of my tokens. Why? Just as a hedge against, well, maybe it never does come back around. So now I regret selling that, but at the time I had to make an informed decision and at least de-risk out of some of it. So what I hope happened is actually what they're doing right now is better than what I could have hoped that they would be doing. So yeah, I'm excited where it's going. I'm excited that I still have 60% of my tokens, because as this comes together, if there's no more major catastrophic events where some things happen, and they're supposed to have some parameters that if it drops more than a certain percentage in a day, it freezes all trading. And for some reason that didn't happen that day, and they just lost a whole bunch very quickly within a day. For some reason that parameter didn't kick in. At least that's what the story is. And it seems to be making sense with now that they've shown people using the algorithm, and those people have the full latitude to post the trades that were made and what their returns were. So I guess it seems like they're showing as much transparency as they're able to. So I hope this one comes together. I always knew that this was a high risk play, and with high risk sometimes comes high reward, and sometimes comes a complete loss. So I'm excited about where this one is going and hope it comes together. I would never put 100% of what I have in this. Never, ever. It's just too risky for that. But do I have a chunk in this? Yes, but it's only maybe one. At the height, it was maybe even 1/20th of my portfolio when I, had the most amount of tokens. The real Randy Chavez is joining us. He says, "Go Bumper." I know. He's one of my good friends. He has a great channel that he covers VV and OMI and has a lot of amazing guests on, even outside the crypto space. And so I told him about Bumper actually when it was a lot cheaper, and he got excited about it too. Okay. What was let's see what other ones were here. Oh, can we
I
check
think it was a couple more.
Centaurify?
Sorry, I spoke over you. What was that?
Centaurify?
Yeah, is that a CNTA star or was it with an S?
No, you're right. With a U now. Centaurify.
Centaurify. Oh right, okay.
There we go.
Not here.
All right.
On one of the other exchanges. Right. Is that? No, that's not updated. Yeah, so let's try. Let's see if we can get something on TradingView. Maybe a wrap coin or something. Yeah, I see. Right. So this is obviously. Would that be correct? Do you think? Closest thing to it.
Yeah.
Maybe? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I see why you want to look at it because it's had this massive pump, and it's a question of whether it's going to keep going or not. Look, this is clearly a very small project and at very early stages, so it's difficult for me to really say very much about it. Only because it can get pushed around by big positions by a few people. Technical analysis works best when there is no individual that can really move the market around that much because you're trying to look at mass psychology with technical analysis. Having said that, there does seem to be a sea change in opinion that's happened very recently. And what I'd like to see is the market stay close to the top of a move like this, which means that there'd be another following move. In what we'd call a continuation pattern. So I think that's possible given what we're seeing here, but it is extremely volatile and I'd have to be a bit cautious. There's a bit of data, I suppose, going back a year or so. Yeah, I'd prefer a bit more data, but as you can see, if you look at the way it trades, you can see that it's obviously very thinly traded, or at least the data that it's showing here is quite thinly traded. So I'd like to see a bit more on what the project's about, and do a bit more research on other charts that I could find. But yeah, it's great that it's broken out here. I think where it may be targeting this level here, lots of zeros there, so I'm not going to call them, but that's where I think if it does break out to the upside in a squeeze, that's where I'd be thinking, okay, that's not a bad place to take some short-term profits. But hopefully this first move is indicating that it's at the start of a longer term trend to the upside. So I think we need to come back to it to determine its longer term prospects. But it's a good start because, of course, a rally's got to start from somewhere. And, this is a good move. And let's see if it can build on it. But I've got to be a bit cautious on something like this because of the way the chart looks, and obviously it looks like it could be moved around by just a few big positions, which could easily reverse.
Yeah, it's definitely a market cap that is so small it is really easy to be pushed around by somebody who doesn't even have whale money, right? The market cap, and this is after it 3x, the market cap is 191,000. So think about before it 3xing, the market cap was around 60,000, which unfortunately I hadn't looked at this in a while, or I might have just double checked that the team was still alive and kicking and bought some, because I love it when market caps hit this range in the bear market. As long as the team's still alive and working and they're pushing forward towards success. And even this is a really, really low market cap. So I have some of this. I'm upside down on it because I didn't realize how cheap it would get, right?
So you've bought some?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
What do they do? I'm really curious.
So their marketplace is launching soon, which is why I think there's some excitement coming in. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes back down. Buy the rumors, sell the news, right? And so got some people excited that they're still working. They're launching a marketplace. Now, is this going to be a really successful marketplace? Well, they have some big competition, but who knows if they're even mildly successful, it could go up. For me, before I buy more, this is definitely a wait for me. I would like to buy more, but I'd like to see it go back to anywhere near it where it was, so I can throw in $100, $200, $300, $500, and you're able to get so many tokens. And then just shut my eyes and almost forget about it for a while. And as money then comes back in the market, if I start hearing a bunch of people covering on their YouTube channels, then I'd be like, oh gosh, yes, all right, let me look at whether I want to take some profits out. Now, some of what they're doing is a Web3 based music marketplace, which makes sense. Like, NFTs are perfect for music, for videos, for being able to own a copy of a video, right? So instead of DVDs or other things, like, NFTs are perfect for ownership. It's perfect for ownership of songs. So that's part of what they're working on. I did bring them on for an interview like a year ago, and I'm trying to remember what all they said they were doing. I remember part of it was a music marketplace. They're also doing a ticketing platform. So we'll see if they can make that happen. I'll probably have to rewatch the video myself because I haven't seen any other interviews with them. But this direction they're going is of high interest to me, and it's not clear who's going to win in going this direction. But if they get some decent names, and that could take the market cap way higher from here, right? So we'll see how this goes. Often in the crypto winter, yes, some projects go down to market caps under $1 million. And then even if they don't shoot all the way to the stars, if their market cap then goes to $100 million market cap, sometimes that's 100 or 200 or 300x. In this case, it went to that. From even here, that's like a 500x. Now, do note that only 11% of their total tokens are in circulation, so there's probably going to be some more token vesting in some ways of their tokens coming into circulation. But their price was once 4 cents, and now it's 0.16 cents, and was recently 0.04 cents. So we'll see. I'm not completely convinced that we don't have a pullback coming, and that pullback coming might be a better opportunity for some things. So for me, this is a wait. But great suggestion from one of our viewers. All right. Let's see. Was there anything else? Sale on 2021 was saying, I think this related to Bumper. I think it's the version 2 staking liquidity pairing with USDC on March 1st. So they're offering some big incentives starting March 1st with Bumper for people to provide liquidity on Uniswap version 2 between USDC and Bumper. And they'll be rewarding Bumper tokens for those that provide liquidity for that. Dean Sangster says, evening guys, I'm a big fan of Ultra UOS. Seems like great buying opportunity. Thoughts? Why don't we check that one out?
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to pull it up on Coin Market Cap here while you're pulling up on your charts. I've been a little bit concerned about Ultra because their competition is coming in strong. So Ultra's big pitch was, we're going to be like Steam, but we're going to be like Steam, yet embrace games that are making NFTs and have a marketplace that people can exchange those NFTs. In fact, have like a platform that all these games can launch through our platform. And so kind of like what Steam has for regular games. And so games that launch through them will automatically get some exposure and some visibility because there will be a lot of gamers using them. It's made a lot of sense to me that there was room for that, but I am seeing a different type of approach coming together, and that's what Gala is doing and Myria is doing, and to some extent Illuvium is doing. So if Ultra doesn't really get out there and make it big, they have a chance to lose major market share to like Gala and Myria, who have lots of games launching within their own ecosystems, and that they'll have their own marketplaces across those things. So they have some big competition that's stepped in that didn't used to be there back when Ultra launched. But their price, let's take a look at what you got on the charts.
Yeah. So from a longer term perspective, I've gone into a weekly chart, which I don't normally do, but there is enough data and the data seems clean enough to do that. Look, this is quite a nice upward trend. So I'd say this is pretty good. The support that it should have held was around 22, 23 cents, which it went through, shook a lot of people out. That would have shaken me out, and then has now recovered that and started a new upward trend. But this is a relatively small move. And it's, as you can see, we've got this downward trend line coming in here and an upward trend line coming in here. So it's at a crossroads. So I want to see where it breaks out. Now, I think it will break out to the upside. If I had to have a choice, I'd say it's worth having a bullish view here because the overall trend is up, and it needs to maybe catch up on the bigger picture. It is so balanced because it's had a good rally, but it's also pulled back before everything else has pulled back. So it seems to be leading the correction. So I would hope that it would find some support exactly where it is now. So it's come again back to test this pivotal level at 22 cents and see how important that is. So I'd like it to hold that. So I can see why you're thinking it might be a buy at these levels, because of this support area here. The problem is if it does get a bit lower, there is still some support to catch it below, which would come in around 19 to 18 cents from this bigger picture upward trend line. The only thing is if it breaks that trend line, I personally wouldn't like the look of the chart. I would start to worry that it's going to take this low out, and that wouldn't be good. We'd have to see where it is in terms of everything else. It's all right if something's correcting and the whole market's correcting, but if it's leading the correction down, I'd be a little bit more wary of it. But good level here, so it could be a potential buy. For me, I'm not confident enough on it at this point, and so I would say it's a wait. But I do like this bigger picture upward trend. I think I'd be a bit more patient and wait to see it breaking this trend line to give me a bit more confidence it's starting a new trend. So that would be my view.
Great. So for you, it's a wait.
It's a wait. Yeah.
And I'm tempted to call a little bit of a buy here, but I hope it comes back to that lower trend line, like you said. And at that lower trend line, for me, it'd be a buy. Though I shared some of my concerns, I'll share some of the things I still like about it and that I see coming together. Right. So one of the things that's really big for gamers is this single login idea, right? So part of the reason Steam has so much traction is people don't have to remember their logins for all these different games. They just buy it through the Steam app, and they just have to log into Steam, which then has two-factor authentication. So their account's pretty secure, and they just have the one login. And so that's where they're going with this. Access everything you need all in one place. Ultra's ecosystem houses a game store, non-custodial wallet, digital asset marketplace, live streaming app, tournament app, etc. So it really comes down to what games launch through them. Now, I did hear that like a whole bunch of games had signed with them, but I can't find where I read that to validate it, make sure it's the case, because really it comes down to where are the games that everyone wants to play launching, and if they end up coming through Ultra, then Ultra will do really, really well. I like that bigger chart that you showed, and I like that trend and that lower trend line. So We'll see. Am I actually going to be buying any at these prices? No, I don't have a lot of liquidity free. I need a little bit more. If I did have a bunch of liquidity free, I would probably know that I might not remember to check this when it does hit that lower trend line. And that's why I would be buying a little bit, because it should do well, even with the competition coming in the coming number of months. Would I go huge on this? No, I saved the going huge for ones where I just really, really like it, but it's not at a bad place right now. Okay.
I can see what you're thinking, exactly what I was thinking. It's like, it's tempting just to say, yeah, have a little a nibble at these levels.
Just in case you missed it. Yeah.
I was thinking about that from the last one. You know, you just sort of just buy it and then forget about it, sort of thing, and just sort of write it off.
And sometimes I do that, right? Like I was checking to see it. Oh yeah, Centaurify. I know I interviewed them. Did I ever pick some up? Oh yeah, I did. I couldn't even tell you what my buy price on that was, but I can tell you I'm probably down on it a bunch because of where the charts have gone. And that's okay, because like my sandbox tokens, I was down on them for a while and they reversed 2/3 from where I bought it at. And then they went up, you know, and I was like, oh, everyone was talking about sandbox. And I was like, okay, let me check where I'm at. Oh my gosh, what is this, like 70x from what I bought at? Okay, well, let me take some profits out. So sometimes I do that. And that's the beauty of being in the space for a while, is that these things, like all these stories I'm sharing, they're because I've been active in the space for like 5 years. And a lot of our viewers, you know, 3 and 4 and 5 years from now, you're going to have similar stories to all these. All right. Well, Paul, that's all I have. Thank you for sharing your skill set with the audience. What you do is amazing to me. And I just soak in as much as I can, because what you do is so complex, and your timing and your rules, and when you jump in and what your rules are, I look forward to gaining that amount of knowledge over the longer period, because at some point, like, these massive swings in crypto won't be so massive. And yeah, I'll be diversifying across a lot of different markets.
Absolutely. Well, look, it's always a pleasure, guys. Thank you for your picks, and thank you for inviting me each week. I always look forward to it, and see you next week. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right. We'll see you, Paul.
Cheers.
Paul is absolutely brilliant, and he's so good to come spend his time joining us on this. I hope everyone here values it as much as I do. I suspect you do, because the number of viewers is always high on these videos, and the comments and interaction is always really high. We're still in this broader bear market. Like, have we hit the bottom? Possibly. I think, like Paul was suggesting, that we might see a correction. I think we probably will, but we'll see. Just know you don't have to buy at the absolute bottom to do really well. What you're looking, at least what I look for, is projects where I feel like they're fundamentally strong, that they have a chance of doing really, really well. And then I try to buy them when nobody else is talking about them, and when they're cheap. And yet, especially if I can verify that they're still alive and working, and they're just out of the narrative focus right now, and then wait till they hit the narrative focus, and then I'm usually taking some profits out. Let me just check the comments, and yep, ready to wrap up. There were some other I didn't get to, Veracity and Creo Engine. Maybe next week, if you join us, we can get to those. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you soon.
To the space, chasing all of the games, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, right before you could, was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss, cause I always make the time in mind. I take the one out, cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. The principles are simple, believe in a lot. Why when it's boring, just gotta be smart. sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, but time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road could soon become a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. Naysayers come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.